Hi and welcome everyone to this episode of Breakpoint. The topic for today is getting domain admin with infrastructure hacking. Our guest for today is Prashant Mahajan. He is the director for Payatu Australia Private Limited and OzHack.
It was basically more exciting was to just have a chat with the client. What are you actually more concerned about?
Just to put this in order, AD Recon comes in the earlier parts of the assessment.
And then you can go after the other accounts which might have more privileges.
Can you explain that and simplify that a little bit? Why are we talking so much about becoming domain admin?
Have a centralized management system which can help you organize all of the different user accounts you have.
Welcome to Breakpoint Security Podcast, folks. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of smart security teams and their cutting edge security and engineering practices. We'll share fun and engaging stories about clever optimization techniques that scale your defenses and also keep your data safe. Tune in and be a part of the conversation where exciting innovation meets real world application in cybersecurity. Welcome to Breakpoint, Prashant.
Thanks, Neil.
So, Prashant, how do you want to start this episode? I know, particularly for domain admin and things like pen testing, this is something that we'll be talking a lot about in this episode. And for our audience, particularly our listeners, just to add to the pen testing part, this is one of the areas within security which is very, very prevalent. Many times you will start as a pen tester if you are to enter information security as a domain. I started like that, and many others did. So we will listen a lot from Prashant and his experiences in that area. This is specifically a part where you are trying to penetrate into the client's network or the corporate network that they have and gain more control over the devices, assets, IT infra, or applications. And that whole process is called as pen testing. What has been your experience, Prashant, with this? Do you like to share something with the listeners?
Yeah, I think so. We both sort of entered the industry where it was just still forming. It was not called as it was called as a security industry or information security, which has now become cybersecurity. And in that, even all the other terminologies which are being used, like pen testing or penetration testing, nowadays are become inferior. It's sort of in a way because all the new buzzwords and exciting stuff is red teams and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so
And
this is one of the primitive terms
um,
in that sense.
yeah. And the goal of any of all these security testing still is the same, is to identify what are the current security exposures which you have. That time used to call them as bugs or loopholes, where anybody could then abuse a specific set of either functionality or a software bug in order to then make the system do something which it is not supposed to do, like just handing out privileged access to anybody who just says, "Can I get it?"
Yeah, thanks for simplifying that for many of the listeners. The other thing that I think we'll be throwing around a lot in this episode today is domain admin. In fact, it is in the title. Can you explain that and simplify that a little bit? Why are we talking so much about becoming domain admin? What's the whole thing about?
So, essentially, when we are talking about domain admin, we are talking from the context of Active Directory, which is a directory service created by Microsoft, I think so in early 90s. Yeah, I don't remember the exact year, but that was basically solving a very specific problem which everyone had, which was how do we have a centralized management system which can not only help you organize all of the different user accounts you have in a specific environment, but also then utilize that to manage all the different machines which are part of your network. be it servers or endpoint systems. That time we had workstations or desktops. Now we have laptops and mobile devices and so many other kinds of endpoints. So Active Directory was basically that solution which essentially all organizations used to use to help that problem being resolved. And in order for that to happen, there are different privileges which every user has, starting from just a normal user or a limited user who only has access to certain things, not everything. He cannot go and change a lot of different configuration options which are there in Active Directory. Um, Based on the different kinds of privileges you need, there are different roles or groups which are there in Active Directory. And any user who is part of that group will basically have those permissions. And when you're just talking about from a domain level, domain administrator is the highest privilege you can have. And if you're talking from a forest level perspective, which is essentially a collection of multiple domains, then it's the enterprise administrator or enterprise admin, which has got domain admin privileges, but also more, so they can actually administer the entire forest, which means all of the domains in within it.
Thanks for simplifying that. You must have had this first time, right? When we are into pen testing, many times you will get to find some vulnerabilities, and some of those vulnerabilities are more exploitable. You can find some solid, um, I would say, entry point into the network, which you're trying to, pen test into. But then many times, especially in the beginning, what was your feeling about when your friends might have said, you should get a domain admin? Because I remember traditionally it has been the primary goal of penetration testing that you do get a domain admin. So what are your feeling when you first heard about getting domain admin? Did it feel challenging? Like, what was your thought behind it?
And yeah, because it's the highest privilege, we sort of, as a pen tester, always aim to get that because that is sort of like a honor mark. And a lot of different offices, I think so, they also used to have a shell bell. As soon as you get a shell on a particular system or Active Directory, you get a DA, then you basically got the privileges to ring the bell. And that was like bragging rights. Um, and over the years, certain things have become easy or in a way difficult as well to gain those kinds of privileges. Like in one of the initial assessments which I was doing, I essentially was able to get domain admin in literally less than 5 minutes. Because what they essentially had at that time was a file share which had null session on it, and that basically SMB share had the backups of the domain controller directly. So all you had to do to get the privileged access was just mount those backup images, extract the database which stores all of the credentials in a database. They are in a hashed format, so you cannot just directly get the plain text password easily, but the way Windows authentication works, you can basically just use the hash for authentication. So as soon as we were able to extract the hash, we basically could authenticate and do whatever we want in the domain.
Yeah, I mean, I am tempted to ask what was the client's reaction rather than having been on this site. But what was your reaction? So this was your one of your first hacks, or was it, after a
It
lot
was
of
in
practice
the
that you, or sometimes luck plays a role?
Yeah, luck does also play a role. It was not one of my first ones, but it was also not like I was a very seasoned tester by then. I was still learning, and even today, I'm still learning every day. Um, that ways, I was first of all surprised that the client actually had that because you either see clients who basically at that particular period of time, and I think so it still hasn't changed that much today, where people's network are essentially like a coconut. um, hard on the outside, where it becomes a slightly difficult to get in. But once you're inside, basically everything is open. So at
Ah,
that time,
yes.
yeah, the
That's a
client
good
essentially
analogy.
had a complete flat network.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So hence, just to, repeat this again, hence once you are a part of the network, it becomes much easier to go around in the network than it was to enter in the network in
Yeah.
the first place.
Yes.
Okay, you have, personally given trainings as well at many places for infrastructure hacking, and you've been doing this for a long time. And while we still wrap our heads around the first, sort of, I wouldn't call it incident, the first hack that you were talking about, can you maybe walk us through another such hack where you can take us through step by step, especially for the listeners to understand that it's not always such an easy process, but anything that was, interesting that you came across in your journey of, hacking, because I'm sure having given so many trainings and of course having done so many engagements, you must have become domain admin many times. So would you like to talk about any one of those?
Um, this is again when I initially started testing, there was one such project where we had been asked to test their external systems, basically all the systems which are exposed to the internet. And as part of that test, we essentially found they had one particular application which was exposed to the internet to access email. And because at that time they didn't have um, um, yeah, they had a VPN set up for all of their employees to log in order to access all the systems, and they also had to use the VPN in order to access the email. But as part of a shadow IT, I think so someone had just published an app which they could access from anywhere, where people could just log in. It had got a separate, its own login system for that. It was not using the company managed AD for it, which was being used by certain employees. But because it was shadow IT, none of the credentials were actually hard to guess. So once we were able to enumerate
Okay.
all the different employees who were working there, we just created a username list and tried some simple passwords and basically got into a few different email accounts of the employees.
So when you say enumerate, you're saying the usernames of various employees, right?
Yes.
So you made a list of those usernames, and that's where you tried logging in into these accounts.
Yeah.
Okay, please go on.
So even at that attack, we had a few challenges. Although it was deployed by someone, it still was under the firewall controls which they had. So essentially, as soon as it saw us sending traffic to it, it would just blacklist our IP address for a certain period of time. So then we basically had to create a few different proxy servers which we could utilize to do that attack, and finally managed to get access to a few different users.
Can you
Yeah.
maybe just take a step back and also explain creating proxy in the process? How does that help for the listeners?
So proxy is essentially a system which you can use, which can basically masquerade your IP address which you're using to access that particular system. And basically, it is nothing else but another system running on the internet with that specific software configured. So you can spin up systems on the internet anywhere. Nowadays, you have so many different cloud options, and just basically tunnel all the traffic coming from your system through that machine. So the end system which you are accessing sees that the connection is actually coming from that proxy server instead of your direct connection to the internet.
Okay. So what
Yeah.
happened next?
So as soon as we got access to that, we just quickly called up the client saying, "Hey, we found this application, and it can be abused to get access to a few different email systems." And surprisingly, the client was like, "Okay, so what can you do with that?"
Yeah, that we hear that a lot, right? I mean,
Yeah,
here you're just being the that reminded me of the term ethical hacker. So you call the client and say that, see, this is how it is, and they're challenging you further, which is
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So then yeah, we just had another call with the client saying, "Hey, what are some of the things you are fine with us doing with the access which we have?" And he essentially was like, "No, just go for whatever you want to do. Just
Oh, nice.
in case you get any other access, then just let me know, and I might tell you to stop there." So what we basically then started doing was send phishing emails from those ones which we have compromised to other employees, trying to basically find what the actual credential that user was using, because what we had was a separate credential, not the actual credentials they used to access the systems. So we were able to send a few tickets being raised to the IT team who reset the password for some user accounts for us, set up a VPN client for us, and then we were basically able to get internal access through that.
Whoa, so you're basically officially in the system, and now you're
Mhm.
raising tickets as a part of the process. You're going with the process, raising the
Yeah,
ticket. I think that will not raise more eyebrows because what's in the ticket is generally officially by an employee for a specific
yeah.
need of the company, and that's why you're asking them to reset the passwords for. Were you also choosing accounts, some key accounts, or whatever account that came in front of you?
So initially, we were able to compromise an intern's account. Um,
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, instead of any privilege, we found a few who were managers and stuff, but we chose to start with the intern account because he's probably just started new. So it's if he
No one cares about the
cannot log
interns,
in
huh?
into his system, he can still get by.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah, I think that's an example of going by the pretext of what, just for the listeners. So when you are, even when you choose your accounts, right, you can do that carefully so that even if there is noise, people can sort of make sense of it. Here, any fresher, new joinee, or intern will have this pretext very well set that they are not able to log in or they've forgotten their password because they're very new to the system. So that doesn't raise too many
yeah,
eyebrows.
yeah, makes it much easier to fly under the radar that way.
Yeah.
And once you use, you can basically then utilize that access to get familiar with the other systems, and then you can go after the other accounts which might have more privileges, and then allow you to basically move laterally within the network.
So what was your story like from there to the domain admin?
So after we got access inside the network via the VPN, we started enumerating different systems. We were able to get access to a few different system admin accounts, and basically create our own slow attack map by enumerating different systems, how they are working, and then basically utilizing that access to escalate our privileges further. So going from that, we were able to access certain desktop admins, then move to server admins, and then we basically got domain admin through there.
So I think I'm sure people who are doing this on a daily basis would be familiar with this, but for most of our listeners, just we have these multiple levels of admins where you can raise your privilege from one to another, and in a realistic setup, not the five minute ones, but in a realistic setup, you would have some level of control at each level where you start from the normal user, which the intern is what we're talking about, and then raise to the desktop admin, and then they have a little more privilege, then go to server admin, and then to domain admin. Was there something specific that you exploited in that case to actually become the domain admin?
So at that time, it was once you essentially had what we also call as local admin or local administrator account. It is easy at that time. It was very easy to extract passwords or password hashes from the memory. Benjamin Delphi has created the Mimikatz tool, which is a tool which was very, very helpful then to dump the process memory for the process which is responsible for authentication. And as part of that process memory, you essentially had plain text credentials for different user accounts on that system, and hashes and a lot of other useful material. So using that, we were able to then keep on laterally moving to different systems with different privileges. So yeah, we essentially just utilize the same attack, rinse and repeat on different systems until we got access to the account which we were after.
Okay, which is the domain admin account. So you
Yeah.
can, you I think for some of us who might have checked out, I was also checking out your profile. You have created yourself a tool which is called AD Recon. Do you help that as well? Now that you were talking about Mimic ads, I thought I could check about that as well.
Yeah, so AD initially, whenever you're starting a test, the first thing which you do is try to find all information which you can, which is also called as the reconnaissance phase. So initially, when I was doing a lot of testing, I sort of was seeing that I do repeat a lot of different steps, which I do when I'm trying to find information about the Active Directory when you have access to the network. So I just, in order to save my time to focus more on the interesting aspects of testing, I basically just created a small, simple PowerShell script, which was just a list of all the different commands which I used to use, just blanketly firing one after the other. And while I was testing, a few of my colleagues saw that and they were like, ah, actually, this is pretty handy. Can I get a copy of that? I was like, yeah, sure. The copy of that was shared internally, and then slowly started getting feedback saying, hey, can you add this feature in that as well? Can you add that? So instead of just simple commands, I basically just converted that into a proper script, which would allow a few different configuration options for the user based on what they want to do, and spit out an output which could be utilized by us during testing for making our jobs easier, but also could be something which you could directly send to the client, saying, if you want information about your domain, here's everything in a single file.
Okay, that's nice. So just to put this in order, AD Recon comes in the earlier parts of the assessment, and Mimic ads will come in much later.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so while you were talking about the exciting parts of the engagement, what is your favorite part of uh, the whole pen testing activity?
Um, it is trying to find and understand how different systems which are currently being utilized by the client, what are they using them for, and how can we then figure out some clever hack or a way to bypass the security controls which are put um, in order to find what loopholes or what other things which anybody else can abuse in order to then gain unauthorized access.
Yeah, I mean, to put it like simply, being more creative about the
Yes.
hack,
Yeah.
of course, gives a bigger high. But um, the interesting parts of hacking also come in sometimes, depending on the engagement towards the end, right? When you
Yeah.
have become the DA, what does it look like? So once you become the domain admin, now you have control over everything, and of course, with mimic ads and other tools, you would have access to a lot of other details as well. What's next? Like, what do you generally do next in, for example, in a red team engagement where maybe becoming domain admin is not the goal, where you have all the control. What's the logical next step for you?
So after when I started testing and getting quite a lot of domain admins privileges, it was basically more exciting was to just before even starting the testing, just have a chat with the client. What are you actually more concerned about? Are you concerned about your employees being able to escalate to domain admin, or is it specific systems which you are more concerned about? And that basically started changing my own complete testing methodology. So instead of running for the domain admin first, we basically would try to explore all the different avenues of just slight abuses or slight privilege escalations, which is much more impactful for the client rather than showing, yes, we can have access to all of your systems now.
Yeah, I mean it's not proportionate what kind of business risk some systems can give you versus
Yes,
the others. So it also shows the level of maturity that you move to from the usual hacking and getting excited about getting domain admin in a way, and then looking at what is the real business risk, and how do you go about that and helping the clients do that. Uh,
like
while I was
sometimes if showing clients just simple things also excites them quite a lot. Like there was one particular testing I was doing um, where I just mentioned to the client saying, "Hey, you have got a Windows XP system on your network which is out of support," and he was shocked. He's like, "No, it's not possible at all. I've personally decommissioned all of the systems." And I was like, "See, here's the IP. Here's the screenshot that it is actually a Windows XP machine." And he was like,
I hope you
"Oh,
didn't show the
wow."
BSOD that everybody's scared of today.
So he took it up as a challenge for himself. And the next day, when I actually went to continue the testing, he had actually put the physical system on my desk, saying, "Here you go. It's decommissioned now."
Oh, okay. This is called a proactive client. Very
Yeah.
good that you have a few of them. But this is like, keeping physical system on the desk. Say, I remember that, we would have a lot of these on-prem systems when you'll have physical systems. Now, with a lot of our own systems, in fact, developer system to servers to everything is moved to cloud. How does the whole attack chain look like when everything is moved to cloud today? Are there differences that you see? Are there bigger challenges in getting domain admin today, or is it easier?
In some aspects, it has become easier because there are a lot more focus and a lot more research which is happening in order to identify those attacks. At the same time, we sort of are still in a bit of a hybrid kind of model where we have still certain systems which are running on-prem or on-premises, and we have still a lot of systems which are hosted on the cloud. And with that, basically, the old perimeter which we essentially had, like the castle model, is no longer now relevant because there is no perimeter. All the different systems basically can be accessed from anywhere by anyone on the internet.
But that may also mean more controls in terms of, I mean, for the lack of a better word, zero trust, but essentially people trying to have, extended set of controls and more verification with every call and check. Uh, does that make it more difficult, or today it's become easier because it's become way more difficult to even have these kind of controls set up across the network?
So, yes, the controls have changed as well. More like previously, the more controls were around network level, so firewalls or IDS, IPS, and now all of those controls have moved around with authentication. Um, Authenticate the user first before validate whether they have got the proper authorization, and then allow the user to do that. And sometimes that has changed the way users access systems, sometimes for the better, sometimes for worse. And as soon as you make anything difficult for it being normally used, your own users will try to find ways around your security controls.
Yeah, they're the first line of offense, as
Yes.
I would put it jokingly, not defense. But Jokes apart, while we were talking on the subject of controls, and you having seen so many such networks, right, both on prem and on cloud, uh, what do you generally suggest for the modern day network and the way you see it? How can actually teams implement the right kind of controls, the right kind of security layers? What should they emphasize uh, to stay away from high profile attacks? Because there are so many attacks happening, but essentially high profile in the sense that will impact their business. So, what do you generally recommend to clients?
First things which I normally would recommend to client is know what you have. Asset management. If you don't have an asset inventory, you don't know what things you have, you cannot protect them. So identify what assets you have, identify what data you have, where is it stored, where is it coming from, who has access to it, and whether they need access to that or not. So access control. Start with these things, identifying what your crown jewels or what are some of the things which are business critical to you. Start working on securing those while still having a broader understanding of what are all the security controls which you want to have, and start creating that roadmap.
So, you're talking about data, you're talking about, of course, having the visibility first of all, and then talking about data and the access control. Is there any other control that you have seen being misconfigured very often, or is generally not given as much attention as
Backups.
they should? Backups. Can you explain a little?
Like and backups is something which is quite critical when you need it. While systems are working fine, you don't care about backups at all. But when something goes wrong, the first thing you get back is using your backup. But if you have been neglecting that, and then there's no way you can come back to the original state. So this is where also ransomware, initially when it started happening, people were
Yeah.
just restoring from backups, and then the threat actors started targeting backups first before encrypting everything.
Ah, oh, okay. So this
Yeah.
like you will get hacked, you might as well prepare for it. No, but
So
realistically speaking, yeah, it's a part of the entire range of recovery methods that you should
yeah,
definitely have in place in today's landscape.
yeah, like that's in the
That's
old
great.
times we used to have the golden rule, 3-2-1 backups.
Okay.
Have you heard about that?
No.
Okay, the 3-2-1 rule is essentially have three different backups on two different hardware media, because at that initial days we used to have backups on tapes, and then tapes
Hmm.
can also get corrupt, or if you have
Correct.
mechanical hard disks, then you can have problems with the spindles or the header doesn't work, things like that. Or sometimes if it has been quite a few eons before, you might not even have the relevant readers to access the data back. So that's why the rule sort of came. You have the backup on two different media which you can access, and at least one offsite.
Hmm. Yeah, I think this is
So, yeah,
very realistic, very rarely people actually many people will talk about a lot of controls on the surface, but this is very realistic because in many cases, if you're very confident about your recovery time being very less, essentially you have backups, you can recover from it at the right time when it's needed, then this, I think, half the battle won. And then you can look at controls, and then prevention and everything comes in much later, in case of an incident having already happened in the network. Yeah.
but here backup is important from that aspect also, but also ensuring you secure your backups.
Hmm. Access to the backups.
Yeah.
Okay. What role do you think compliance has in all of this? Because from the days that I have started, which has been some time, we have always seen compliance take a lead in making sure that, for example, many of our clients would go for pen testing itself because it was a compliance requirement. So it has been sort of a trigger. Can companies use that, or that's just something that should come in as a regulatory requirement, and we should have the entire thing from day one when it comes to security? What's your thoughts on that?
So, compliance, I think so plays a very important role from that perspective because first thing is it lets people know what are some of the things which they should be doing. And the way I sort of see compliance is a minimum set of things which someone should be doing to protect their business. If you're talking about cybersecurity compliances. But unfortunately, with that idea which they provide to the customer or the business that should be doing those things, they start treating it as a checkbox, saying, okay, if I have these are the things I've done, then I'm secure. It doesn't work that way. Like there are so many different organizations who are PCI DSS compliant. And so many of them have been compliant with that, but have still been compromised. It's
Yeah,
because as
on
soon
the
as they
ground.
get the compliance stamp, they stop thinking about security after that. Whereas that basically just sets the minimum threshold, and after that, sky is the limit for them. Based on how much budget resources you have, you slowly keep on building up.
Yeah, it's like I think it never ends. The security, the controls, and with all the new technology coming up, you're always like you cannot be complacent about it in today's environment. So that's where things have been. Cool. Thanks a lot for sharing all this information around, the controls, the hacks, the 5-minute hacks. I, in fact, wanted to sort of, I was getting the vibe of calling you like Chalta Firta hacker. That's the Hindi word for, a walking and running man who's a hacker. But that was interesting. Thanks for joining us today, Prashant, and sharing all these stories with us.
It's absolutely fun and always fun to have a chat with you, Neeru, anytime.
I'm looking forward to more such sessions with you. Hopefully, you'll join in future as well.
Yeah, hopefully when I'm not jet lagged.
Okay, we'll keep it to this and maybe end the episode here.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.
Hey y'all, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Breakpoint Security Podcast. Your support means that we can bring more such conversations back to you. Share with your friends and colleagues and stay tuned for more episodes from Breakpoint. Until then, bye bye.